Hello guys, Gremlins Chaos here, and today I'm going to be reading a story by Azure 22, and the story is titled The Wolf Soars and Eagle Wings. The footage that you're watching right now is a commission that Azure asked for, and I will be making more illustrations for her in the future for the same fic that I'll be reading the first chapter to you today. I don't normally do these things often. I've always wanted to do voiceovers for my video, but I either didn't have the chance to do it or I was too anxious to do it. I do have a bit of a stutter, so I deeply apologize for long pauses or if I trip over my words or something. I'm hoping that it'll get a bit better as I read the fic. But anyways, let's get on to the video. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I hope you guys enjoy it. It's something new, and I definitely hope to do this more in the future. If you guys have any like tips and tricks on how I can improve, or if you think that I should change some things, then feel free to let me know, and I'm definitely open to it. There are some NSW scenes in the story, but the only one that I can really recall is chapter 11. So if you don't want to read that, then I suggest that you skip chapter 11 because yeah. Anyways, let's get on to the story. It was thunder that had woken him up. A particularly loud, booming crack echoed throughout the darkened halls of the keep, waking him up from his repeated nightmares. He listened to the rain pound against the window, so violently that he felt it might shatter. He tossed the covers aside and got up. He crossed over to the window, peering out the foggy glass to see lightning fork the sky and pierce the spires of the city. Another crack of thunder, shaking through him, loud still. And despite it, he smiled. He was used to storms. They were a constant reality of living in stormwind. This one, however, was incredible. There was no going back to sleep now. He eyed the bed. The covers were soaked in sweat and a tangled mess from his violent dreaming. He had no wish to repeat them. He pulled on a linen shirt and pants before walking through the empty halls. Torches flickered and snapped as he walked by them, and rain leaked through the unsealed crevices in the ancient halls. This was the one area of the keep that hadn't been destroyed in the First War. His feet took an automatic path, allowing his mind to wander as he stepped barefoot up rough wooden stairs toward the battlements. He was thinking about war, about taxes, about leadership. As thunder shook the spire, he gripped the railing tightly, quickening his pace. He wanted to be in that downpour. He didn't know why. It was foolish, insane even, with the lightning, but he wanted it. He stepped out into the gale. Rain lashed at his face, whipping his hair, which he quickly bundled up and tossed aside. It was a welcome relief. The fight against the wind had given his body something to do, and his mind something to focus on. He reached out toward the stone battlements, pulling himself up to the edge, watching as lightning sprang down, licking one of the many lightning rods before pulling back up. The falling thunder had deafened him. He peered below. The castle was a large staircase which laid behind two solid 20-foot-high oak doors. Presently, those doors were opened. So rarely were they ever shut. The keep was open to visitors at all times. Despite this, it was rare anyone had attended the library or courtyard so late at night. It was well past 11, and even on calm nights the people were in bed by this time. So why was a figure staggering about down below? He strained his eyes, trying to figure out what it was. It was a woman, that part was clear. She seemed to be hurt or confused. She reached out in vain for the white walls surrounding the stairs, only to fall into a massive puddle which enveloped her. He watched for a few seconds, praying she'd get up. She didn't. Varian reacted quickly. He thundered down the stairs, racing towards the entrance. Guards shouted after him in alarm, rushing with him towards the storm. The doors to the castle entrance were shut, though his guards, guessing where he wanted to go, opened them swiftly without him even asking. He raced outside, back into the gale. He stomped through icy puddles of rainwater. She was passed out. He saw that she was passed out, and would drown if not rescued. He picked her up, unconcerned with the guards' shocked faces and shouts of dismay. He noticed that she was thin, so very thin. Her blonde hair stuck to her face, obscuring it from him. He immediately ran towards the kitchens. There was a fire lit there at all times. She could warm up there. He was so focused that he nearly ran into his servant, Bathilda, who sputtered, "My king, what's the matter?" Her eyes widened when she saw the girl. "I heard thundering footsteps, and I knew that could only be yours. You saw her outside, then?" Out of breath, he nodded, pushing past her. Doting and well past middle age, Bathilda had been Ren's servant ever since he was a small child. She ran to get blankets as he settled the woman in a chair by the crackling hearth. She began rousing her eyes quickly widened when she saw him. My, she stammered, as he pulled up a chair near her. "It's all right. You're all right." He peeled her soaking hair away from her face. Her entire body was racked in nervous shivers. "You nearly drowned," he said. "She was beautiful." He noticed that she was beautiful. That much was certain. And despite her starved appearance, she had piercing green eyes that shone with a fire that he didn't expect. A feeling that he hadn't felt in years threatened to overcome him, and he fought it down. "Thank you, my lord." "Don't, just call me Varian." He couldn't stand hearing the familiarity from her. Everything about her was so perfect, it was too much. "Shoo!" His head snapped up to the voice, anger flashing in his eyes, before he realized it was Bathilda, who was carrying a tearing pile of blankets and spare clothes. "She needs to undress and warm up. You can't be here. Go make yourself something to eat," she said as she smiled warmly at him. And he stood up, eyeing the woman as he did so. Can I get your name first?" He stuttered slightly. Nerves? Why now? He thought to himself. Kalia, I mean, Varian. She didn't meet his eyes. He backed up a few steps before turning around and exiting into the pantry. He left puddles as he walked out, and Bathilda nearly slipped on one as she carried Kalia a mug of hot cider. The girl took it with shaking hands, her mind reeling from the fact that she had been rescued by the King of Stormwind of all people. But not only that, but what had she be doing out there on the castle steps? She racked her brain, but couldn't remember as to why on Azure she had been there at this time of night in this bad of a storm. "My dear, I know you've been having a rough time," the doting old lady comforted her, placing a hand on her blanketed shoulder. "But why were you out there in this weather?" I have no idea, madam." She waved a hand at the young girl. It's Bathilda, my dear. Nothing else will do." "Where do you live?" She started, biting her lip. Nowhere. I have no home." Bathilda stared her for a long moment, sadness in every wrinkle of her face. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, dear. Here. She handed her a luxurious nightgown. It was violet with a lace trim. Kalia eyed it for a moment and touched the fabric gently. It was soft, yet cool. Made weave. I couldn't possibly. You can't only stay in those clothes, dear. Come on. She turned her back as Kalia gingerly stripped off her soaking clothes, which she disposed by the hearth. She dried herself as best she could before slipping on the nightgown. It felt like she was wearing nothing at all, yet was surprisingly warm. How can I thank you? She smiled at Bathilda, who smiled back at her. Oh, don't thank me. Thank Varian, whom... Oh! Varian had poked his head out into the room at the mention of his name. His hair still soaking wet, dripping onto the water, dripping water onto the floor and adding to the mess that he made. Need to change as well, my king. In due time, Bathilda, noticing that she had changed, he crossed over to her. Kalia couldn't help but notice how handsome he was. Even soaking wet, his hair a massive tangle, he was simply gorgeous. She had seen her king before, of course, but only from a great distance. All she knew of him was his exploits and a great deal of effort to secure a future for humanity and the city of Stormwind, which always looked so bleak. Many people spoke ill of him, but just as many people defended him. All she knew that under his rule, no matter what, it was safe here, unlike any other place on this fortorn earth. She looked up at him. My, he was tall. You feeling better? He asked. Genuine concern had laced his piercing blue eyes, and she found her own to be locked onto his. Much. I have your servant to thank for it. And he chuckled softly. But Bathilda is more than just a patient, more of a stand-in mother. He sat down into the chair opposite of her, and Bathilda came in and wrapped her blanket over his shoulders before moving off to brew a pot of tea. I'm very lucky that you found me, she managed, still staring into his eyes, and he was equally transfixed. I couldn't sleep. The storm woke me up. I'm glad I found you when I did. I'm sorry. I don't know why I was there. I must have been wondering. I don't have a place to. You're homeless? She heard the bite in his voice and recognized that it was directed at himself, not her. He blamed himself. Yes, I am. Did you used to have a place to live? Yes, I was a florist down by the Mage District. The war in Northrend drew much of my business away. People don't really have any need for flowers when undead from the land. She shivered involuntarily. I'm deeply sorry. He finally looked away. It's not your fault. Later, he gritted his teeth. Bathilda came in with the pot of tea and two mugs. Kalia handed over her empty cider mug, taking the warm cup of tea between her hands. She noticed that it tasted of peace bloom and silver leaf, great for nerves and stress. She thought as she drank deeply. Varian didn't even touch his cup. Drink up! I gave you cider! Bathilda barked from the pantry, and he smiled wryly. Listen, he leaned in, snaring her eyes with his own again. I don't want you going back out there. Stay here, alright? He seemed to be choosing his words carefully, deliberately. She nodded slowly in reply. We have plenty of room. I really don't want to impose. She bit her lip. Stay tonight in the keep? She could hardly breathe. We're not. Please. You can't go back out there. He stood up and placing his untouched cider on the mantel. I'll show you the room. He brushed past her. He walked tall and proud, though not at all like he was trying. It was just him. She fought down her attraction. There was no reason to have such feelings for a man she can never have. He had thought it all out in the pantry. He would ask her to stay, but not for long. He'd make sure to say she was welcome, and that he didn't want her back out in that storm. Finding out that she was homeless was a bigger bone that would cut through his heart. He felt personally responsible for all the homeless at the cost of the Northern War. Taxes were at the time high, all of it going towards military efforts. He wanted so desperately for it to be all over, but that's not how the world worked. Still, it allowed her to stay as long as he wished. But what could you say in argument? Of course, he let her go if she wanted it, but something told him as he looked into her eyes that she wanted to stay as much as he wanted her to. He walked up the staircase towards winding halls that led from room to room. In better times, they held nobles and many extended members of families, but now they just held storage. They passed the armory. Two armored figures like ghosts stand against the faint light. He led her up another staircase until reaching a wide open hallway that was lined with tapestries. All were ancient, dating back long before the First War. This place doesn't seem like much of a palace, he heard her say, and he smiled. The ruins have never been one to extravagance. The bare stone is all we need. He turned toward the tapestry that outlined his family tree. She in turn and looked at it, her lips slightly parted. This was made shortly after I was born. He brushed a knuckle at his name at the bottom. And when he isn't here. He added, "Your family seems very lucky with the sons," she remarked, and he let out a laugh. "I never noticed that." His eyes traced down his family lines. Landon, Adamant, Lane, Varian, Anduin. All sons, no siblings. I guess we lean towards boys." He jerked his head down the hallway. He was drier now. His hair less stuck less and seemed to be in a massive tangle on top of his head. He'd deal with it later. She followed him to the end of the hallway where a massive bay window overlooked the lake and pristine snow-capped mountains. "Here we are," he announced. Nerve sending tingles throughout his hands and legs. He busied himself with the door. "Might be dusty. No one's ever in here." It was a large, airy room, a small bed tucked into the corner, along with a large chest of drawers, a table and chair, and a wardrobe. A painting of a a dragon fighting a knight hung on the wall over the table. She turned around and smiled at him. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. I'll see you in the morning. He looked at her for a moment longer before tearing his gaze from hers and awkwardly backing out of the room. As he shut the door, he asked himself why he was doing this. For her safety, of course. He mentally chided himself. No, that's not the only reason. He wants her desperately. He walked towards his own quarters, falling hard as he nudged the open door. As he nudged open the door. No, he couldn't deny that. He did want her. She gave him feelings that he hadn't felt in ages. He'd never been able to act on him before. Tiffin was pregnant and had just given birth, and then he threw back his covers so violently that they fell to the floor. Shit. Grumbling, he picked them up, untying his hair and pulling off his now dry and wrinkled clothes, and he slept underneath the covers. What harm would it do? He wanted to get to know her. You want the better, his mind repeated over and over again. He gritted his teeth. He couldn't deny them, but that wasn't the only reason why he wanted her near. The future only knew what path she held for him. Turning over, he fell into a much more restful sleep as the storm raged outside. The end. Whew. That was much harder than I intended it to be, but if I do continue making these sort of videos, I'll hopefully get better over time. Anyways, I will put Azure Hugh's links down below so you can check out her Tumblr or and her fic. And I really do recommend reading the fic. It's pretty good if you're into that cheesy romance sort of stuff. And show Azure some love. I'm definitely looking forward to making more illustrations for her story, and I'm definitely wanting to make more of these videos in the future. Anyways, I'm gonna leave this here, and you guys can enjoy the rest of the speed paint. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and have a good day.